wait, you were expecting a podcast, I believe, weren't you? Let me just look through something here. I might have one somewhere close by. I don't know. Is this? No, that's not a podcast. Nope. Ooh, that's definitely. Ooh. Yeah, you don't want to know about that. That's definitely not a podcast, though. Let me dig through some stuff here, and I'll get back to you, and we'll see what we can do about an actual podcast or whatever it is you want. But we'll see.
Dude, found the podcast. It's right here. Yep. Hey, this is Cory. Yep, that's Dave. Yeah, that's Scott, and of course he's praising Satan. And this is the second part of the True Crime Podcast. Let's go right over this next bridge, and we'll be there. Here's the second part. Thank you for coming back. Okay, on to our next round. Bob Dylan stumbles back out into the ring with Highway 61 Revisited, a more accessible album with a backing band and not just Dylan with a guitar, harmonica, and whatever you want to call the instrument that is his voice. And stepping into the ring with Bob is Al Green with his greatest hits of smooth, soulful, R&B, slap that ass, love making grooves. You can hear our thoughts on Highway 61 Revisited back on Season 1, Episode 5, and on Al Green's greatest hits by listening to Season 1, Episode 2, which was Dave's first episode with us.
It was.
Yeah, so let's...
You remember your first time, Dave?
Kidding me?
We were gentle.
Glad you used a low bridge.
And a deep river.
That sounds like a Bob Dylan album. Low bridges and deep rivers.
All right, so Dylan, this is what I said earlier. The guy's got an album in every genre, and this is him once again saying, "I know everybody thinks I'm the savior of folk rock or folk music that's gonna like lead the revolution, but fuck y'all, I don't really care. I want to do some rock music." And so he picks up an electric guitar and goes through a phase where he does a lot more like blues and rock influence stuff. And
this is where he got a little more naily too.
Yeah, there is a lot of that on this album.
Yeah.
Yes, this is, God, yes. Yeah, but this is where we get Like a Rolling Stone from.
Actually, yeah,
most... Rolling Stone, it's stuck in my bone, through my phone.
Some of his more sarconics on Rolling Stone, also Desolation Row, which can be divisive just because it's 11 minutes long. But
speaking of longer
the other thing
songs,
I noted is that with Dylan, everybody, including myself, wants to talk about the lyricism. But there's some solid musicianship on this album, too. Like, there's some really good guitar playing. Tombstone Blues especially has a great little guitar bit that I liked.
No, this is like I said, this one's a lot more accessible. I think because when you have a lot more instruments in there, maybe it kind of hides the voice a little bit more. I think it's why it's sometimes with like some of the Neil Young songs, we're like, no, it works because there was so much more going on that you could distract from the sound. This was one of the ones when we did our +5 with Dylan. This was, I think, one of the ones I really liked of those.
Yeah. Now on the downside, I mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's
he's
Scott. On the downside, I mentioned earlier that with Dylan and Springsteen, the focus is almost always on the lyrics, but that Dylan is a little bit hard to decipher sometimes. Dylan's always a little hard to figure out what he's trying to say. This is especially hard. Some of the songs on this is just downright impenetrable. You cannot figure out what the hell he's going for.
Dylan's into writing riddles. You probably need to take like a master's course in parsing out his lyrics and trying to understand what he was going for or what reference he is pulling, whether musically or literally.
I think there are actually college English courses that just spend the entire semester poring over his lyrics and trying to figure out.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
He's well read as much as he's well, when I said literally, I meant like literature. Right. He's pulling from so many different references out there. It's like, who knows what he's even referring to.
It's not for everybody. So back to Keith Richards, who we mentioned before with Elton John writing songs for Dead Blondes. Keith has a quote about Dylan too. He called Bob a nasty little bugger. I remember him saying to me, "I could have written Satisfaction, but you couldn't have written Desolation Row." I said, "Well, you're right there, Bob."
Oh.
Yeah, but you know what? That's not what the Stones were about. They're not writing long stories.
Well, I mean, I think Richards just thought Dylan was just full of himself and that it was all just bloated garbage. And the other negative I had down here is the title track. No song should ever feature a slide whistle. If you find yourself in a recording studio one day and you happen to have a slide whistle, just don't do that.
And then the person that walks in with a slide whistle gets his ass kicked and thrown out.
Or better yet, you put the slide whistle.
I know where this is going.
I'm just saying. You
Right
put
up
it
Highway
somewhere
61.
else. And you have a meat whistle. Yeah, you have a meat whistle on Highway 61.
And as you cross one of the bridges.
Right. A low bridge with a deep river. Play that meat whistle all night long.
Okay, I think because we've talked about Dylan a lot lately, so let's move on to Al Green's greatest hits.
Yeah.
This is classic 70s soul. Now,
The lube for many women.
you say that, but I wonder where Barry White fits in as far as ratio to how many children were conceived to either Al
That's
Green or
probably a
Barry
toss-up.
White.
Marvin Gaye too.
That's a good point, yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no shit.
I think the one song off of here that everybody would immediately recognize is "Let's Stay Together," because that song has gotten a lot of play, and it's a fantastic song.
Sure.
That being said, and there's nothing wrong with this album, by the way, but I remember that even when we discussed it originally, none of us could figure out why the hell it was on the Rolling Stone list in the first place. It's not
It's
bad,
a greatest
but
hits.
it's not
and
anything spectacular either.
No.
this is when we first brought up having an issue with greatest hits, especially when he's got two other albums in the top 500. Why'd you bother putting in a greatest hits?
Yeah.
I mean, if you're going to put in a greatest hits, let that be the only entry
Well, then
for a band.
it's arguably it's kind
Or
of
an
like
artist.
cheating,
Yeah,
right,
exactly.
too, because I mean, if you're going to take a greatest hits, Highway 61 Revisited, Dylan writes every single one of these songs, and he carefully selects the songs to include on the album, and some of them take off, and some of them don't. When you're putting together a greatest hits, you're pulling together the material that everybody already likes. So it's almost trying to give you an unfair advantage in terms of when you put these albums head to head like this.
Yeah, you're pulling in all the favorites. You're right. That's not fair to put this on a list, but they're not doing what we're doing.
And honestly, though, as a greatest hits album, so-called, I didn't feel like it was his greatest
Yeah, there's some
hits.
stuff here that's missing. I mean,
There was some missing stuff. There was some questionable stuff because, as we've noted, it didn't age well.
no, I mean it sounds.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know if I would say it didn't age well any more than I would say that of any other 70s soul. I mean, it all sort of sounds trapped in the moment, but some of the stuff that's missing, like "Take Me to the River," probably everybody has heard that song, and for some reason it's not on here. I don't know, maybe he hadn't done it yet by this point, but so that could be one excuse. But there are when you say that it didn't age well, if you were going to pick examples of 70s soul to put on a list of greatest albums, there's so many other choices that I would have gone with rather than this.
Yeah.
Agreed. Okay, I think we can go right to the vote. So, Dave, you go first on this
one.
one.
The shaft on John Wesley Harding, but here it's kind of a no-brainer. I got to go with Highway 61.
Yep, Scott.
God, I feel like I feel like I'm gonna break something if I say it, but I want to say Al Green, man. I just don't. I'm so sick of Dylan at this point.
Well, I will have the deciding vote, and I'm going with Dylan in this round. Of course.
Sure.
Well, like I said, it's a greatest hits. I think if this was just a standalone Al Green album that he had to put together, he had to, choose different songs. It's unfair. That's a good point.
We're also talking about which album we actually would listen to again. I would listen to the Al Green again over that fucking Dylan thing. That's
Okay.
just me.
Hey,
It's a valid consideration.
That's why we do this.
Oh, because, okay. I'd like to build the world a home and furnish it with love, yeah. Grow apple trees and honeybees and snow white turtle doves. Oh, I'd like to teach the world to sing in perfect harmony. Oh, I'd like to hold it in my arms. Oh, and I'd keep it company. Oh, yeah, I would. are kind of my cum dump. Yeah. That's the real thing. Oh, it is. Oh, it's the real thing.
Okay. On to the next round. Back again is your favorite egomaniac and mine, Jimmy Page. With the second Led Zeppelin album, a more polished piece of work going against the battered, bruised, and limping Kanye in the other corner with Late Registration, with what I deem as palatable Kanye in the parlance of our time. And if you're interested in hearing us talk more about Late Registration, that's on Season 1, Episode 4, and Led Zeppelin 2 is on Season 1, Episode 5. So this time, let's start with Kanye. I'll kick off. This one, I think of all the ones we had to listen to, this was the one that was probably the most palatable. This one I could get through and not sit there, roll my eyes, and want to tear my eardrums out. I was like, okay, this isn't bad. Yes, his rapping still sucks. Don't think for a minute he ever got that right. But everything else, there were some really good high points here. There was some good production. Yes, I mean, he's making a pop album. I think he shouldn't be listed as rap. He should just be a pop producer.
I don't
Agreed,
disagree.
agreed.
I mean, we said earlier that, first of all, that he's not a rapper, that he should just shut the fuck up. This is probably as good as he got in terms of rapping. It doesn't, which is not to say it's great. I'm just saying of the Kanye catalog, this is probably as good as it gets. And musically, it's not bad. There's actually some really interesting moments. In Heard Him Say, there's a piano beat and vocals that really works. I particularly like in Diamonds for Sierra Leone, where he samples Shirley Bassey singing the theme from the Bond movie, Diamonds Are Forever. If Yeezus was the one that I found most musically interesting, gun to my head, this is the one that I sit down and listen to again, because I agree with you that there's a difference between palatable and interesting. Yeezus was the most interesting. This one is the most palatable, in my view.
Well, that's where I was going to thinking really too. Is this one is the more like, okay, it's not a gigantic testament to his ego, and it's more like kind of an honest album. I mean, for Kanye, as far as honesty ever goes.
Yeah. Ish.
Jamie Foxx doing a pretty damn good Ray Charles impression.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
And moreover, we keep saying I wish Kanye would shut the fuck up. Like, one of the things he does right here is he actually does, because he brought in a lot of guest artists, and he really on a lot of these songs took more of a backseat and just let somebody else handle the rapping part.
Wise.
And that worked for him. I think we were able to cover both positive and negatives.
Yeah,
The same
the
time.
negative
that
is
covers it.
Kanye's rapping does show up from time to time.
And it's low and deep. That's all. Low
No.
and
You want him high and shallow.
Well, yeah, you're right. High and shallow would probably be better. Shallow. Anyway.
Okay, on to Led Zeppelin 2.
I want a whole lot of lunch.
So if we had Led Zeppelin 1, which was all heavy blues, and we had
Oh!
Houses of the Holy, which is this really experimental all over the place, this is their middle part. This is them starting to make the transition into something different than just doing blues covers.
They were getting better at this. Jimmy Page is still producing. There, like I said before, there's always room for someone to come in and go, yeah, why don't you kind of trim this out? Why don't you kind of do this? But I'm not gonna argue a Zeppelin album. You told me to go in there and make a change. I wouldn't even know where to begin. I wouldn't touch it. But I still think that there would probably have been a much more refined producer or engineer that could have just gone, hey, Jimmy, have you ever thought about this?
I think that maybe there should have been a few lyrical changes, but musically it's fucking brilliant.
Oh, it is. This was where Zeppelin 1 kind of dragged on in some places. They tightened it up here.
Oh, yeah.
And by tightening it, they made the songs just much more solid.
Well, they sounded... I was just going to say, they sounded more like Led Zeppelin here and not just a blues cover band.
And this is also an album where you realize that there's a lot of stuff that they did that they actually don't get proper credit for. I mean, when we talked about the Pixies a couple of shows ago, and the fact that they sort of popularized in alternative music this quiet, loud, quiet dynamic where the song starts out with a quiet bit and all of a sudden blasts with heavy, hard sounds and then maybe backs off again well, listen to What Is and What Should Never Be, and you realize that Zeppelin was doing this long before anybody thought of the Pixies.
Yeah, Black Francis can take a black seat. Whatever that means. Yeah.
Otherwise, I mean, this was just a great album. I mean, you kick it off with Whole Lotta Love, and I mean, that song, it covers so much in so little time.
The kick drum on that alone just, whoa.
Yeah, no.
I love that. I love
Bonham
that.
is, I mean, we really a lot of the musicians get to stand out on this album.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is there such a thing as too much Bonham? Yes, actually there is.
Yeah, sure.
Yes, there is.
Yes, there is.
Yes, there is. But okay,
Absolutely.
let's start with taking the
So
shots
Moby
at it.
Dick,
Yeah.
which is basically just one long drum solo.
Yeah.
I'm sure if you're a drummer, it's a great listen. Everybody else, sorry.
Yeah.
It gets old. It's not something you put on like a playlist. You like when you hear it in the context of the album, it's fine. But you're not going to go out of your way to be like, dude, I'm going to put Moby Dick on. You're like, no.
They didn't play that on the radio.
I mean,
a
this
lot.
goes back to what I said before. Excessive noodling, and now I'm going to include, and drum solos are for live performances. Keep them off your
I
albums.
agree with that.
Yeah, keep your guitar solos off your albums. Like, I mean, or at least shorten those
I
fuckers
think
up.
the one difference is, like, so if you think about like Eddie Van Halen Eruption, you don't have to know how to play. You don't have to know how to play guitar to hear that and realize that what he's doing is fucking technically amazing. You can hear the complexity just in the sound. With a drum solo, it's kind of, if you don't play drums, it's kind of hard to appreciate everything that's going on unless you actually see it happening in front of you.
Yeah.
Well, an Eruption is only like, what, a minute and a half?
Well, there's that too. Yeah.
It's very short.
It's not excessive, where it could easily have been, but it's not.
And Moby Dick was how long? Like 5-6 minutes?
It's 4 minutes, so you've got the song, and I think the breakdown of the drum is probably a good 3 minutes of that.
That's long.
Yeah, it is.
And then lyrically, I mean, mostly good, but there are moments.
There's
One
some
review
moments,
I found
yes.
said that I saw a lion. He was standing alone with a tadpole in a jar. It said if there was ever a lyric that cast a pall over an entire album, it's that one.
Yeah, even years later, Robert Plant comes back to ramble on with the whole Tolkien reference. He admits that, it really didn't fit. A fair maiden wouldn't be found in Mordor, and Gollum wouldn't want nothing to do with her anyways. He's after the ring.
Right. That song though, that's the one place where I hear the guitar solo almost immediately when I think about that song. That wonderful Jimmy Page that was so Pagey.
It's funny actually when I think probably the first thing I think of is actually
that whole thing. And
what they're not known for, which is the organ and synths in the background.
Yeah. Yes.
No, they
Brilliant
brought in
stuff.
some
Brilliant stuff.
really great stuff into this album.
That was where John Paul Jones really stood out as an arranger.
And that's where I was saying, I think everybody else got to really shine on this album.
Yeah.
John Bonham a little too much with Moby Dick, but I mean, you still had his drum lines in even like Ramble On that where you're like, no, just showcase this. This is where the guy is just amazing.
Yeah. He knew how to play to the song.
Yep. And then I have like one quick shout out for my buddy Jordan that would always, when Living Loving Maid would come on, you'd hear living, no, loving, yes, she's a cadaver.
You gotta love Jordan.
Yep. So I had to share that. That was always a funny bit when he would just start shouting that out.
Shout out to St. Jordan, yes.
It's kind of a moot point, but on to the voting.
Yeah.
I get to go first, so Zeppelin.
Yeah, if Conway was
Dave?
If Kanye was good.
Conway. Tim Conway and Dorf on Golf. Taking on the Moss.
I'm a hard
Kanye was
man
gonna
from
have
the
a shot at
streets.
this
Yeah.
at all, it was probably with this
sorry.
album. Unfortunately, he got put up against Zeppelin, so it's a no-brainer. Zeppelin.
Yeah, I won't even try to fuck with that because fuck Kanye from a tall bridge, and
Shallow river.
like a rivulet, a stream,
A shallow, rocky river.
with spikes, just
Punjab
all the way
spikes.
down. and no lube, lube at all. Yeah. So it's going to be vicious and a lot of screaming, but yeah, Zeppelin. Of
Okay. And here we are at the middle part.
Again.
Again. Yeah. Well, we always have a middle part, so we always come back to it again. Or
Stuck in the middle with you.
There we go.
However that goes.
As you can tell, it's just two of us. We lost Dave.
Where is Dave? I don't know.
Yeah. We're taking this opportunity to share with you a lost Dr. Seuss book that was recently discovered. Apparently, he wrote this on one of those Bender-like weekends when he was high on smack and doing lots of key bumps of coke.
What exactly is a key bump?
You know what? I don't know, but I hear it's rather popular at orgies in Washington.
Ew, all those old dudes and their Jesus dongs.
Jesus dongs, what the hell?
Yeah, that's what you call the dudes after their previously flaccid dicks after a couple of those Cialis pills, you know.
Oh, okay. How did we even get here?
You said key bump.
Oh, I did. Right. Okay. Anyway, you want to set up our reading of this lost Dr. Seuss book that we're going to do?
Sure. You know what?
Okay.
Due to some copyright infringement and that this was not really for kids, Random House, thank goodness they have editors, right, sent this one to the rejection pile with some other works with names like The BVD Bulge and Mommy's Got a Toy and I Want to Be My Dog, The Early Morning Cock. And
Wait, whoa, hold on. I Want to Be My Dog? That sounds rather innocuous.
Not when you want to be able to do what the dog can do. There's a line in that one that's like, I want to be my dog. I'm his biggest fan. He can eat scraps from the garbage can, and he can lick his balls because he can.
Oh, okay, all right. I get the idea. Yeah, good call there, Random House.
Yeah.
All right, let's get on with the reading and what we're doing here. So, go back to the setup.
Ted Giesel, Theodore Giesel, Dr. Seuss, thought he had stumbled onto something, but in reality he was on a heroin and coke-fueled weekend in Argentina, and either it was his dealer or some crazy old dude he would hang out with that played a popular album of the day, and given our current situation, I thought it would be appropriate to recite it for all of you.
Argentina, you'll say. Okay. Anyways, the title, as lifted from Cheech Marin and Tommy Chong, is Dave's Not Here, and Scott, why don't you start the reading for us?
It's rainy and gloomy, and I want to play outside. But if I drag in mud, Mommy will whip my hide. I know what I'll do. I'll call my friend. He can come over and we'll twist and we'll bend.
I turn the dial, turn the dial, turn the dial. I hear the ringing and I start to smile. It's his mom that answers and I plead for my friend. But his mom slurs quietly from the other end. She either does not know or does not care, but says, Dave's not here.
How can this be? Where can he be? If he's not here, then where? I cannot look for him out there. I remember the mud, my aching derriere.
Maybe he's on a trip far, far away. And if he is, I hope he's happy. I hope he's gay. But I really wish that he was with me. We can play spin the bottle and strip Yahtzee. For now I will cry and go on a tear because Dave's not here.
Cartoons are over, and there's nothing on, and my bum still hurts from playing with Daddy's gun. Oh, the things Dave and I could be doing, like when we play bull and cow and do all that mooing.
We can dance, sing, and even play leapfrog. Then we can act out, I want to be my dog. Maybe he just went out for a dime so that we could have a good time. But please, 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 I don't want to hear Dave's not here. But wait, what's that noise? Is Dave in my house? Hiding in the closet again wearing my mother's blouse? When will we find him? Where can he be? Is that him hiding out in our tree?
It is not him. It's just a cow. Will no one ever find him now? It's almost like he's dug a grave, or maybe he's hiding in a cave. This truly is our greatest fear. Oh no.
Dave's not here. But then we look out in the rain. Is that Dave riding on a train? Is he a hobo or is he a clown? Is he perhaps hanging upside down?
Is that him on top of the neighbor's roof or standing erect on the morning cock's roost? Or maybe skinny dipping with the ducks? I'm simply stuck inside. It's just my own dumb luck. I will just cry and listen for him with my ear, but for now,
Dave's not here. And there it is, ladies and gentlemen. The lost Dr. Seuss.
Yeah, it's probably best Ted didn't have that one published, you know.
No. All right, well, back to the show. For our next round, Bruce Springsteen steps back out with his Born to Run album. Not quite the large success that Born in the USA would be, but certainly an album that helped get Bruce's name known, and that this was someone you needed to be paying attention to. Bruce finds himself in the crosshairs of Neil Young and his album of Everyone Knows This Is Nowhere, hoping to take a shot at the boss and strike him down. We explored Born to Run further back on Season 1, Episode 5, and Everyone Knows This Is Nowhere on Season 1, Episode 4. Let's start with the boss.
Yeah, you know what I'm going to hone in here. It's the lyrics again. So this in Nebraska, I think if you put those two side by side, maybe his two strongest lyrical albums ever. Meeting Across the Water is practically like spoken word poetry, honestly. I mean, he doesn't even... most of it isn't even sung. It's just spoken. Jungle Land, there's this reference to the barefoot girl sitting on the hood of a Dodge drinking warm beer in a soft summer rain. That sounds like something you would pull out of a novel rather than something that you find in a song somewhere.
It's very, like you put beat poet, so it feels like a Kerouac line.
Yeah, I love the lyrics on this album.
It does feel that way.
And it's not the Nebraska slow, dark. It is more upbeat, maybe sort of like a happy medium between Nebraska and Born in the USA.
No, there's some good songs.
I think Nebraska would have sounded like this album had they found a way to get the E Street Band to put music to the back of those songs to add the other instrumentation. And I still think
agreed.
that they made the right choice in keeping Nebraska just as it was. I will stand by that.
Well, Nebraska needed to be stark, and this needed to have a little more life to the band. There's some brilliant musical moments on this album, specifically on the title track.
Oh, yes.
You know, there are some songs that they were great the first time you hear them, and then you heard them again and again and again, and then you hit a point where it's like, if I never hear that again, it's too fucking soon. The Born to Run, the title track here, even today, I can hear it and still appreciate it just as much as the first time I did.
I don't tire of it. I don't.
No, I don't either. Oddly.
And there's so many. This is another one of these times where there were so many hits. Jungle Land, Thunder Road, Born to Run.
And again, mastering, it's almost like a tapestry that he's weaving for you with all these stories and all these characters. And then he just brings them in. You feel like you know them, and again, very well done.
If I'm going to look at something to poke at here, you guys alluded to it earlier, that 3.5 minutes versus 6 minutes, 7 minutes, 8 minutes. Jungle Land in particular is just needlessly long. I mean, if you're going to make 9.5 minutes on an album, to devote 9.5 minutes to one song, you better make every fucking second of it count, and it just doesn't here. In fact, when it comes to Jungle Land, there are covers out there that I like better than the original because they've tightened it up and cut out some of the fluff a little bit.
I do disagree, though. I felt like it carries itself. I mean, he goes between different parts of the song almost like a classical piece. There are, and he stays with the theme and the motif, but he comes back to it, and I feel that it works in its length. You really don't feel the length because of the different transitions and the different ways he goes through. I mean, I'll take like an 8.5 minute song like Paradise by the Dashboard Light. You barely know that you've just spent 8 minutes
like
there.
7 minutes.
I beg to differ. Jungle Land for me is musically a very interesting track. Lyrically, it's okay. I thought it was all right. I think some of the lyrics are just like a little fluffy, but that's just me.
But listen, on the whole, this is kind of like Revolver. On the whole, there's just not a lot to criticize here.
There
isn't. So let's not.
So let's turn to somebody we can criticize.
Yeah, let's now bring out our other Dylan-esque whiner, Neil Young with Everyone Knows This Is Nowhere. This is his second solo album.
First one to bring in the Crazy Horse as his backing band, and as a result of that, quite a bit rockier than his original album. I mean, I don't know. I don't particularly love it. There are some strong songwriting moments on here. I've always liked Neil Young better when he's not doing the high-pitched whiny voice thing. Thankfully, he doesn't do it as often on this album. I guess that's a plus.
I'm more of liking my Neil Young when he's a little bit more upbeat.
I'm more liking my Neil Young when I'm a little bit wasted. But, that's just me. And honestly, really? Cinnamon Girl is my favorite track on the album.
Cinnamon Girl is like a case study of why I don't like Neil Young.
I love the guitar riff on Cinnamon Girl.
I like.
Just
let me back off
the,
of that. I like it musically. Again, it's really his vocal is so off-putting to me.
Agreed. The vocal is annoying as fuck, but the riff and the lyric even is cool. The way he sings it, fuck that. Yeah, all the way down, short and deep or shallow, whatever. Just off the fucking bridge now with something in his rectum.
You know what? We do have another variable. It could be a frozen lake
It is
or
Winnipeg.
frozen river too. That you just crack through the
Yeah,
ice,
yeah.
you fall beneath it, you get hypothermia, and you get pushed down away from the hole that you fell through. So it's drowning
Very
and
Canadian.
freezing.
It's very appropriate.
And sodomized all at once. Because if you got to throw sodomy in there, it needs to be like that.
Well, then that I guess the drowning
Doesn't
would
know.
include some sort of asphyxiation.
And clown porn. Oh, okay.
But yes, I do really like Cinnamon Girl, and it's well crafted, and it's just long enough that it works. You know, you know what?
Yeah, it's not overly long.
Like, you know, I give the example of, Keep on Rockin' in the Free World. And how many times does he
God.
say that? I'm not going to tell the joke again. You can go back to the season 1, episode 4 to hear the bit.
Okay, so Cinnamon Girl, you're saying that part of the reason it works is because he kept it short and tight. But so let's talk about some places where he didn't. Down by the River, 9.5 minutes long.
Now, that one you felt every
Cowgirl
9.5
in the
minutes
Sand,
of.
just over
Yeah.
10 minutes long.
Ouch.
And
10
this is back to
minutes,
the same
yeah.
point about Jungle Land. If you're going to devote that much time, it's not necessarily a bad thing to do a long song, but you better make every second count because you're asking a lot of the listener.
Like I said, it's a lot of noodling.
Rectums and noodles.
We understand this
all I
point.
can
Cory
say.
especially understands this point because honestly, if each one of these 1 hour podcasts that you guys download and listen to, which thank you for doing it. We love the fact that you listen, starts off as about 2.5 hours worth of just us running our mouths. And then we have to edit. We're conscious of not trying to ask too much of you. And so Cory does a great job of editing it down to something that's a little more palatable.
Down to the lowest common denominator.
We don't have a demographic, okay? So I don't even know.
And boy, you wouldn't believe how much of me gets
Yeah.
cut.
No, I think they would at this point.
Oh, well, yeah. Would they? Would they, though? I mean, for all the shit that comes out of my mouth, just, okay.
But yes, it's what was the word we used before? I forget who we were talking about even. Oh, we were talking about Liz Phair. It's very self-indulgent too.
Oh, God, is it ever? Yeah. Big time. This is a hugely self-indulgent album for Young.
Okay, I think we're ready to vote.
Let's go.
All right, Scott, you're first.
As much as I rag on Bruce, I'm going to give it to Bruce.
Okay. And I will also give it to Bruce. Dave?
We are unanimous.
We're a threesome on Bruce. Yeah, just nasty, baby. Oh, all the way down.
Are you ready to shenanigan? Dude, is that even a thing? The Musical Shenanigans Podcast, where all that glitters are only the refused dollar bills from the stripper I recognized at Trader Joe's. We know and appreciate that Musical Shenanigans is your 11th favorite podcast. But please, take a moment to subscribe and be sure to never miss out on the action. Check us out and follow us on Twitter at @M_shenanigan. Don't forget to change your undies and call your mom to get mine back from her. And now back to the show. All right, welcome to the final round, the final matchup. Fleetwood Mac emerges with their only top 500 album, Rumours, a drug-infused album with band infighting at levels unprecedented. A marriage between John and Christine McVie on the rocks, and one of the multiple splits between Lindsey Buckingham and Stevie Nicks that fueled some of rock's greatest breakup and fuck you songs. Facing off the dysfunctional family of Fleetwood Mac is David Bowie with his Low album that was supposed to be a soundtrack for a movie with some very diverse sounds and proving Bowie's broader skills. We talked a lot about Rumours back on Season 1, Episode 3, and we discussed Bowie's Low on Season 1, Episode 4.
Indeed, we did. And you were going to mention Lindsey Buckingham.
Lindsey.
Lindsey Blumkingham.
Yes, that lad. Yes,
And Stephen Mix.
yes, Stephen Mix. They had the gay thing going on. I don't know.
Yes.
Anyway,
Yeah.
no, what a great album though.
This is another one of those
Rumours
perfect
is
albums.
Brilliant. Yeah, it really is. I mean, there's a little bit of fluff on there, but that's you're really digging hard to find the fluff.
You're digging. Yeah.
Because damn, there is some great stuff here, and as somebody noted, the professionalism it took for them all to focus as a band when they were going through such awful shit in their own lives and their personal lives and their interpersonal
And doing
lives.
backing vocals on songs that are directly about them.
First, it's taking a lot of tension between the band members and saying, you know what, rather than just shove this under the table, I'm going to use it to make art. And they actually sit down and write songs that channel this stuff. And then to have everybody willingly walk into the studio and set it all aside long enough to actually record the song together, Cory, to your point, while recording it, knowing full well that that asshole they're singing about is you. I mean, that's a lot. It's a very professional thing to do.
Yeah.
People joke about, Taylor Swift writing breakup songs. They can't. I mean, no one's going to come close to Go Your Own Way.
No one will. Taylor Swift can't touch that. I mean, please.
There's not many who can.
No, and no one would want to, really, at this point in time. I don't know. There's a few. There's people who like that old stuff, so, yeah.
And The Chain. I always felt.
I love that song.
That is a song that everybody contributed to. It's like two separate, almost three separate parts that just come together and work.
The other thing about this album, too, is it was also just hugely influential for them as a band. There were, first of all, pretty much, this is the most successful album any of them have been affiliated with, either together as a band or singularly, before or since. And almost every song on this album became a big hit. It's one of these things that, this is one of the few albums, actually, I think on the list where I could say that this is their output. If I were to tell you, we started a conversation about Fleetwood Mac and you said, oh, I'm not really that big a fan, I only know one or two songs, 90% chance those two songs are from this album. Because this one album is really their biggest producer of hits and really fed their entire career in a lot of ways.
Very true. Very true. I mean, there was a lot of brilliant stuff on the early Fleetwood Mac stuff with Peter Green, but people don't know that stuff for the most part.
No, it got eclipsed by Lindsay and Stevie joining the band.
When Buckingham Nicks joined, that's when it became Fleetwood Mac proper. It felt like.
Yes.
Yep. Not to say it's all sunshine and roses. There are a couple of low points.
No,
there's some fluff here.
No.
Oh Daddy and Songbird I could have done without.
You know what? Yeah. I have to disagree because those are Christine songs, and I think that you need that balance in the band of having everyone have their songs.
That's a valid point, but are they good songs?
They are. I think they are. I mean, they are.
Okay. I think they're good.
I think they're very good. I mean,
Fluffy, yes.
Maybe fluffy, but Songbird she did in like inside a theater with just her and a grand piano. And
oh yeah,
I love her
I do
voice.
too. The musicianship on this and just the way everybody works together. I mean, and even some of like the weird shit they did. I mean, Gold Dust Woman. It's like Lindsay screaming bloody murder in the background. It's like if you watch the behind the music and they take out the tracks and you hear that, you go, wait, that's what you're playing there? And it works. Or Mick Fleetwood's playing a stool.
Don't say
it. The one thing I will say is, and I think we brought this up before, is they dropped Silver Springs. And I think they could have replaced probably Oh Daddy or, I wouldn't get rid of Songbird. Or at least made room for that. I mean, the original version's good, but the one they did for the dance, and I know we talked about this, was so much better. You're able to come back to a song, 30 years, 20 years later, and you're able to go, oh, this is what we could do with this. Oh, this is where we can fix this. Retrospect.
I was going to say the other one here that I've never been a big fan of secondhand news. Maybe that's just me. But the one that really, this might just be a holdover of being old enough to remember the Clinton campaign in 1992. But if I never hear Don't Stop Thinking About Tomorrow again, it will be too soon.
Yeah, I hate it that they even use songs for political campaigns, but there it is. Yeah,
I mean, it worked for the moment, but you're right. That's just, and that is one song that it is overplayed. And it's not one.
It's a great song.
I want to hear again, but it's like I can hear "Go Your Own Way" 100 times and not complain about it.
Yeah, agreed. I love that one. Well, I love
and I do like secondhand news. I do like Lindsay's solo songs.
This whole Yes, and this whole album for me was like kind of instrumental. It was one of the very first rock and roll albums that I had back in the day. So
Okay, so let's move on to Bowie with Low.
Jim Bowie, you know that
The guy with the knife.
He was bisexual.
Now,
or something.
this
I don't
was for
He had a mustache.
Originally supposed to be a soundtrack. You mentioned that before, Dave.
It was. So David Bowie was in a movie called The Man Who Fell to Earth, which actually has now been brought back. I think it might be on Prime. They've actually turned it into a series.
It got well, that's right.
With Rob Delaney, by the way, who's the comic that we were talking about on and the back behind the scenes between shows. But so Man Who Fell to Earth, David Bowie's making that, and he starts sitting down and writing music for the soundtrack. And he gets quite a few songs done and takes it to the producers of the movie. And the only problem was they never really asked him to write music for the soundtrack. And they said, well, this is great that you did this. Submit it and we'll give it consideration. And he was pissed and basically told them at that point, go fuck themselves. You're not using my music at all. And so he took all of these songs that he had written for the movie, turned around, stuck it on an album. Actually, the album art is him dressed as his character from the movie. So yeah, so this is, It's not really a movie soundtrack, but it was written with that in mind originally.
It is good. And I mean, it was the one I think in the top 500 that his lowest ranking.
Yeah, I mean,
album.
Bowie was a little bit of an acquired taste at times. I mean, he was constantly pushing the envelope, but this is kind of like we talked about earlier with Kanye and Yeezus. This is the one where even Bowie fans are kind of like, yeah, I'm not so sure about that. And it's because it's movie music. I mean, like there are some great instrumentals on this song, but they on this album, excuse me, but they were written with a mindset that there was going to be like dialogue and action happening over them. They weren't meant to be standalone pieces.
Because up to this point, people had always associated Bowie with singing and lyrics. You know, him coming out and doing something like this was almost unheard of. But it was, I mean, but it's classic Bowie.
It's
He's
classic
doing
Bowie,
something
and
different.
It's Bowie writing with
Yeah.
Brian Eno, which Brian Eno has sort of like been a master of ambient music for years. And I actually thought the combination of when they were writing together worked really well.
I would agree. Now, the other thing I thought of when I listened to this album is it kind of reminds me of Peter Gabriel's soundtrack, Passion, for the movie The Last Temptation of Christ.
So the interesting part of that is I saw that movie so long ago, I completely lost track of the fact that Peter Gabriel did the soundtrack.
You know, I used to have that soundtrack, and I listened to that probably just... I think I wore out a CD of it. I absolutely fucking love Gabriel's work. And also there's one called Passion Sources, which he did with a lot of them. He featured more of the musicians themselves. But, you know, as far as it being like that...
No. I'm saying this might have been set the blueprint. You listen to some of this and some of like how he's using outside instruments and pulling, you know, the different percussion. And I feel that something in this could have helped inspire, if not, like I said, give the blueprint, because Passion is, I think, when Gabriel started Real World Records and started pulling artists from all over the globe.
It was, and it was also their contemporaries, so...
Could be.
Yeah, I meant that as kind of a positive. I couldn't find any reference, but hearing some of the way Bowie put some of these songs together and put some of the instrumentation, especially on the instrumentals, I felt that, this was a precursor. This was 77. And
I think if Bowie had been more of a musical writer than he was a lyricist, maybe, I don't know, just... This was a rough listen for me, the whole album, because it's just...
Yeah, I honestly, I kind of get what you're saying, because I think actually some of the instrumentals were actually my favorite part. But there are some of the tracks on this that felt like they were sort of works in progress that he kind of gave up on. Now, maybe some of that is the whole took the demo to the producers of the movie and they told him to go fuck himself, and maybe they really are unfinished. But like there's a song called Speed of Life, which is an instrumental that sounds very clearly like the original intent was to put a vocal in there somewhere, and it's just not there. There's another song, Sound and Vision, where there actually is a vocal, but it takes almost 2 minutes before the vocal comes. It's just like sparse instrumental until the vocal finally shows up.
it was like, oh wait, maybe I'm not going to use this as an instrumental. Maybe I can put some words to it.
Yes, and unlike we talked about with Love Lies Bleeding and Funeral for a Friend, you can make a long lead-in instrumental work, but not so much here.
Right. Okay, so let's move on to our voting. Scott.
I'm going to give it to Rumours.
Okay, Dave.
Yeah, same.
And I will also pick Rumours.
By the way, here's one where we definitely aligned with the Rolling Stone list, because Rolling Stone had Bowie's low at 206. Rumours was number 7. So this was almost not a fair fight from the get-go.
It really wasn't.
No, it wasn't.
No, it was not fair. I mean, come
but
on.
when I'm rolling randomly, this is what happens.
Sometimes you get it randomly in the rectum, and that's how it goes. Random rectum rolling.
And rolling off the edge of the bridge.
Rolling all the way down, randomly, in your rectum, repeatedly.
Today's episode brought to you by
Redundantly.
All right, folks. Well, be sure to follow us on Twitter.
at @M_shenanigans. No, actually, I said it wrong. At @M_shenanigan. It's just a single shenanigan. It's not shenanigans.
It's just a shenanigan. And any of the references of songs or videos we'll try to put up there too. All right, folks. Well, thank you all again. We will we'll be back next time. We've got We've got how many more rounds?
More things to talk about.
Well, it depends how we break this up. So we've done 16 rounds so far, which means we've covered 32, which is we've covered half the wild card bracket.
Okay, so we've got another 32 rounds to go, and how that gets split up or how you're going to hear it?
No, another 16 rounds.
Oh, another 16 rounds, 32 albums.
Right,
Thank you.
and then we're going to bite the hot dog like it's alive.
Okay, another callback. Thank you all again. And we will catch you next time.
Thanks, everybody.
All right, Scott. Praise Satan and go home.
Okay, praise Satan. Bye.
Twitter. We're going out now. We're having the outro. Yeah, it's going out. It's going outro. Yeah, it's an outro. Yeah, it's going out. It's shenanigans. Musical shenanigans. They're going out on musical shenanigans. It's just a